Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. What we do at the start of every Startup Grind event, we ask for a show of hands just to see who is new to the community. So if this is your first Startup Grind event, would you be able to raise your hand so we can see the new faces? Wow, that's absolutely fantastic. Well, welcome to each and every one of you. Great to have so many new members, as part of our community. So who are Startup Grind for those new faces? So we're the world's largest startup community. So we have chapters in more than 125 cities globally. So whether you're in San Francisco or in Milan or out in Tokyo, wherever you are around the world, there's a very good chance that there will be a Startup Grind chapter. So if you're one of those people that likes to go networking while you're on holiday, do just take a look at the Startup Grind website and you'll find a chapter local to you, and everyone will have the same sort of culture and sort of mentality at the events, which is fantastic. As I've mentioned, we do this through the local events, and we have an annual flagship conference as well each year in San Francisco. I think we'll be giving you a bit more information on that later on today, so I'll hold that surprise. And yeah, each month in London, so across London we've got circa 17,500 members as part of our community. That's founders, operators, those that are supporting the startup ecosystem. So whatever you need, that's one of the key things that this community can give you, whether you're just starting your business or you're in that scale phase. There'll be something for each and every one of you at the events. So what does it mean to be part of the Startup Grind community? Just a few points here, and I won't go through each of them, but one of the key things that we say, and it's really, really important, is that we do not want people to come along to the events and try and just push their services, try and sell to the community. We always say give first. So try and, find someone who's in need, try and make that introduction, try and help, whether that's, introducing them to a potential investment partner, helping them, meet that new client and, help them scale their business. That's the real ethos that we're trying to get across here at Startup Grind. Brief intro to our team. So you'll see the 5 of us up on stage. Sam at the front will be joining us up on stage shortly, as will Eleanor. The others can't be with us today. Just for those who don't know me, I'm Matt Lamb, and my focus is on legal and fundraising support for startup founders. So with all of that said, I'd like to introduce Eleanor. So Eleanor has been part of the Startup Grind community for a number of years now and has recently joined the London chapter. So it'd be great to have Eleanor up here to say a few words. So yeah, welcome, Eleanor.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you, everyone. Just to say, I'm really pleased to be here. And what excites me most about joining Startup Grind as an ambassador is really helping professionals, tech professionals and founders to connect, but also to build their visibility and really get the recognition that they deserve. I'm a true believer that when people, showcase their stories and their journeys, they get more opportunities. And that's why in my own time, after working at LinkedIn for a few years, I actually deliver workshops on personal branding and content creation on LinkedIn. So really happy to help you guys if you need to, and very excited to be part of a community that not only helps founders feel a little bit less lonely, but also helps them to be more visible. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Eleanor. And then just a small note, I would imagine most of you will have found us, but those who have been invited by a friend or anything, our details are here and you'll be getting an email after this as well. So do please subscribe and keep in touch with our upcoming events. So I'll pass you over to Sam now just to discuss some startup delegations. So it's quite exciting. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Hi, everyone. My name is Sam, so good to see you all today. I'm just going to be talking about the Startup Delegation. It's a program we have for founders in the community go to San Francisco every year. So we send a delegation to San Francisco every year. So I'm going to talk about it very briefly. So last year, I think Matt and I, we were part of, this year, sorry, it feels like a long time ago. Yeah, in April, we went to San Francisco, a lot of amazing people, and we, connected, and yeah. So just going to talk about it real quick, because what do you expect at the delegation? Opportunity to meet about 5,000 attendees, people with the same vision, with the same value, with the same vibe at the same place. Represented from about 30 plus countries and 40 plus industry with other partner event as well. We also got investor matchmaking for people that go through the delegation program. We make them with investors in Silicon Valley, so they get to meet them, sit with them, have one-on-one chat, and I don't know, a lot of opportunity can stem out of that. And also opportunity to land in the US. We process your visa and everything you need to travel. No, we don't pay for the flight though. We just process the visa and that's it. It's looking like too good to be true, right? Yeah, we also got some industry insight and global community. Startup Grind, like Matt mentioned earlier, Startup Grind is a global community. Right, anywhere you are, you got to be part of it. And why sponsor a delegation? So there are two opportunities here. So you can be a founder that want to be a part of the delegation, or you can be like a program leader or like a corporate partner that want to take startup founders in your program to Silicon Valley. So, propel startups to success. So you can sponsor a delegation of 5 to 20 members. And this program is also for incubators, accelerators, government and private organization and industry partners. And what's the benefit? You're able to build brand recognition, media coverage, and all of that. So I don't want to sound too salesy, just to mention it and show that there's an opportunity like this currently in the community. Last year we have about 5. I think Alex was there as well. So we have about 5 members of the community. So it just shows that if we start talking about it early enough, maybe we can have more people, be part of that delegation in Silicon Valley in next April. So this is an important slide. So just to talk about the startup eligibility criteria. So we don't support agency, consultancy, traditional business. It's cool, you're doing amazing stuff, but those are not that's not the focus for the delegation, all right? And you can see the focus already listed out there. So thank you very much for paying attention about the startup delegation program. So I'm gonna go into the I don't know. Okay, I'm going to go into, sorry, I thought you wanted to take a picture. Yeah. I'm going to go into the agenda for today. We're sorry we're starting really late. I think there was a delay on some of the major lines today. And this is what the agenda looks like. And we'll try to stick to it as fast as we can. So thank you. So going to the first thing on the agenda, it takes a lot to organize an event like this. I know some of you paid to attend this event. Some of you got maybe complimentary ticket on the house, which is fine, but it takes a lot. It takes more than ticket cost to organize an event like this. So there are amazing partners and community partners as well that come together to support us to host an event like this. And one of them is HoaQ Kennedy. So I'm going to be inviting them on stage very shortly. And we also want to thank our partners, Supreme Factory, Google Cloud, literally in Google Cloud venue, and look how beautiful it is. So thank you very much, Google Cloud. Yeah, so I don't know if we have OG Startup Grind members, right? They understand that caveat. And we've also got ICE Network. They're going to be talking. They're going to be coming up on stage very soon. We've also got meetup.com video. That's Peter and his team right there. Give us quality videos for our event, and we get to put them up on YouTube after the event. We've also got HoaQ. HoaQ.co, they're also here, HoaQ Venture Club, Foundervine, Grown Studio, and Startup Discovery School. So you're going to be learning more about them very soon, right? So I'm going to be calling Alex up on stage now to talk about HoaQ Kennedy. So let's give him a shout, please. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you very much, Sam. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Watt. I'm one of the partners at HoaQ Kennedy. As Sam was explaining, we're one of the sponsors. Very excited to be here. I won't talk for very long. It's not about selling yourself. Here I am selling myself. We run a small startup program, essentially, and the reason I'm up here is to invite you all to try to become members of it. Essentially, what we do is we provide legal services at a massive discount, but also just help. If we can help you, we'd love to help you. We love this community, which is why Matt and I and a couple of other people followed Startup Grind to San Francisco last year. Just following around, can we be in your gang? It's really fun. But it is a great program. It's a massive discount. Essentially, our profits variably depending on what you're doing. Lots of startups, you'll start in a WeWork or a shared workspace of some sort. But that's not where you want to have a kitchen table, classic startup. That's not where you want to have your investor meetings. That's not where you want to have the meeting with the bank. So if you're within our program, subject to availability, caveat, etc., you can use our offices, and that's sometimes very helpful. The other big thing is the network. You're actually not going to get a better network than Startup Grind, but we've got some pretty good networks that, in addition to which we'd love to give you the benefit of. And if we can point you towards investment, then clearly we'll do that. Principally, we're just delighted to be part of the community. The whole vibe is fantastic. I love that it's about building relationships rather than going and asking cap in hand. It's Startup Grind, not Startup Grinder. So do spend some time getting to know each other at the end, and come and look for us. Matt, Alex Wood, and I will be sitting at the back. All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, so chop, I'm going to call, I think, anyone from Foundervine in the room today? Okay, so still on your way. So I'm going to call Yewande to come up on stage, talk about HoaQ. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Yewande. I'm the managing partner at HoaQ Ventures Fund. At HoaQ, we have been able to move from being a syndicate. So we started out as a syndicate for a lot of African investors and diasporas. And we've been able to invest in about 110 companies across over 10 countries, including the UK and the US. We've deployed funds to different startups. And we now have an early stage. HoaQ Club. So HoaQ Club started out as a couple of young people trying to invest in startups like them. So we started out from 2 founders that worked at Stripe, and we've grown to 700 angel investors. We've done community events around the globe. We have partners like Startup Grind, Google, and our mission is to be able to support other founders in and outside the continent. We now have our first fund is a $5 million fund, very small fund, where we also invest very early, so from pre-seed to seed to Series A, in addition to the syndicates that invest in startups. We actually also just launched something called Borderless, where communities can be able to also invest in other communities, just like us. Our mission is to be able to enable other people invest. Our mission is also to be able to connect talents to investors and to startups. And that's like an overview for HoaQ.
Thank you very much, Yewande. Just a fun fact. I've been trying to get Yewande to a Startup Grind event for the past 1.5 years, say more than 12 months, and she's been traveling a lot. So it's a privilege to have her up on stage. You don't get to see venture fund come up on stage at an event like this to showcase their numbers, right? But Yewande is able to do that. So thank you very much, Yewande. So I'm going to be calling Emma to come talk about Google Cloud. So let's give her a shout, please. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Wow, this is such a beautiful room. Thank you so much for coming. My name's Emma Osman. I'm a startup lead, so I work with the early stage startups, and that's over all sectors. Essentially, we give you credits so you can build your product, but it's far more than that. We want to support you with your business development. You also get I've got a technical counterpart who will also work with you as well. Depending if you are AI focused and you've received institutional equity funding or angel investment, there's different tiers of credits that we can give you. So I'll be hovering around after. So if you want to ask any other questions, please do. I look forward to all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, we've got like a lot of partners, not because to make this event a success, right? Like I said, it takes a village to host an event like this. So that's why we're shouting them out. So I'm going to call on Ade next to come up on stage to talk about ICE Network. Thank you.
Firstly, I didn't plan this outfit for this event, just in case you're wondering. My name is Ade Odumosu, founder of Source ID, KYC platform that does financial innovation for fintechs and for emerging markets, essentially. KYC business, but we'll call it fintech for the sake of it. I'm a member of ICE. ICE is a network for founders. There are about 500 members in this network. 10% of them are partners in terms of VC partners, legal partners, operational partners. And essentially what it is founders who have raised at least 300K and upwards. So you have founders from Series A, seed, Series B, exits, all of the above. So in every summer event, you have a bunch of founders who probably just sold a company, talking to everyone about what to do. The reason ICE is important is because, I just raised this year and, I had about 5 people look at my deck, literally from the network. Whether it's going out, group parties, whatever it is, or actual work-related stuff. ICE Propel was launched 2 years ago. And the main thing, which I stupidly made really tiny, but this part here, we've run 2 cohorts, and 6 out of the 12 founders have actually been funded. ICE is not a fund, but essentially, because it's a bunch of founders coming together, giving advice, giving ideas on what to do, you get a lot of value. Controversially, so it's different. So it's not an accelerator. Essentially, you have people who have done it, whether it's marketing people, whatever kind of business you've done, essentially, you have someone that can sort it out for you. Applications are kicking off this October, and we have a panel coming up next, but, have a look at the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to call on Gosbert next to talk about Startup Discovery School. So let's give him a shout, please.
Okay. Yeah, evening, everyone. It's good to see everyone here. My name is Gosbert Chagula, one of the co-founders and directors of Startup Discovery School. The journey around Startup Discovery School started a few years ago when I worked for a kind of family office in the southwest of the UK. Me and my now co-founder, we came together after working there and we're like, what we want to see is there's a bunch of big problems such as climate change, access to energy, all these big problems which we ultimately want to see more diverse people tackle. And Startup Discovery School has really been the journey. Now, the name is one thing. We like startups, of course, but it's probably easier to talk about what we've actually done. So in the last 5 to 6 years, we've done a range of different projects, ultimately supporting diverse founders, tackling big challenges. Now, what does that actually mean? That means training, skills, but also access to capital. So next slide. Oh, here we are. So some of the initiatives we've been lucky enough to run over the last 6 years. Building Greener, that was a project with Islington Council. Not many people know that councils, so the municipal authorities, have a lot of grant funding they give out to emerging startups. Islington Council, which I think we're technically in Islington right now, one of their biggest challenges is the decarbonisation of their housing stock. They were issuing £15,000 grants to startups who could do just this. Our idea is that most startups, especially those led by diverse founders, miss out. Next, we had Climate Champion competition in Accra. Unfortunately, I'm not Ghanaian. I'm Tanzanian. Is anyone Tanzanian? Hey, one person. Round of applause for ladies, half Tanzanian. Yeah, just for... Hey, exactly. We may be related. We'll talk later. I'll talk later on. That never happens, guys. We ran a climate pitch competition in Accra, Ghana. That is actually part of a wider program which will be launching in January 2025, which is the first ever climate venture studio covering the whole of West Africa in partnership with Autodesk. Round of applause for that. We've also hosted a series of roundtables around net zero and getting diverse founders into this conversation. Often it's about climate change, about the ozone layer. That's way too far away. These are problems we face every day. And finally, Climate Fest, which is actually a program celebrating diverse founders working in climate change. Just a flavor of what we do. If you are interested, we're always looking for partners, friends, allies, experts. Come and talk to me. And I see some familiar faces in the room as well. Is that Shagan at the back? Hey, good to see you. Anyhow, I'll be at the front. Please approach me if you do want to talk. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we are ready to go. I'm going to be inviting our panelists up on stage, but just before I do that, I'm going to be, welcoming up on stage and talking about reading out their bio. So I've got Emma Osman. Let's give her a round of applause as she come up on stage. So Emma is a Google Cloud Startup Success Manager. Emma is dedicated to helping startups achieve their business objective. She collaborates closely with startup sales team to identify customer issues, respond to inquiries, and onboard startups to the programs that accelerate their growth. Emma's goal is to drive startup growth by delivering compelling narratives and innovative solutions. Let's give her a round of applause again, please. Thank you. I'm going to be inviting Yewande Odumosu. So Yewande is a venture partner at HoaQ. And let's give her a round of applause. Thank you. So she has a background in engineering, startup technology, business with extensive experience leading cross-functional teams. Over the last 15 years, she has led and implemented technology initiatives across multiple industries, including software engineering, telecoms, renewable energy, and fintech. Right? She has also founded several tech startups and companies. She currently leads HoaQ Ventures Fund, an early-stage startup fund focused on investing in founders, building tech and tech-enabled startups for Africa and its diaspora. Oh my God, that's a lot of startups. Let's give her a round of applause, please. And I've got Gosbert Chagula, MBE. So let's welcome him up on stage, please. Yeah, so Gosbert is an investor and co-founder and head of programs at Startup Discovery School, SDS, an innovation agency and design that builds accelerator and incubator programs focused on addressing the climate emergency. Through this work, SDS has collaborated with organizations such as HSBC, Unilever, Innovate UK, Samsung, UK's Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO. Oh my God, Gosbert has the longest bio here. Gosbert has spent more than a decade working across startup ecosystem in Europe and Africa, and a particular focus on supporting startup tackling societal challenges through funding. So I'm just going to wrap it up and just give like a brief overview about our panel here. So one of our panelists is running late. I'm not sure he's going to be able to make it, but we'll see what we can make. Okay, we'll see what we can make do. So startup founders need a lot of support to scale their enterprise or their venture, right? And coming in very early, you need the right level of support. So that's why we've built this panel out here for you. So we've got someone with an experience in infrastructure support. You want to scale your technology from one level to another level. We've got a venture partner that's very experienced VC and also a very, very experienced operator. We've also got Gosbert Chagula, that's designed programs for early stage startup and able to guide you on how to go through that journey. So let's give them a round of applause as they walk us through this experience.
Wow, that's how you get an MBE, I think, to be fair. I'd love to start with an icebreaker. Could you tell me something that, looking at you, we might not think? And it can be anything.
He's Tanzanian, yeah. Might not think. Okay, great. I think I've said this before, but my favourite part of going on holiday is not even a holiday. It's actually going to the airport. So people are confused, what do you mean by that? So plane spotting, aviation stuff, that sort of geeky stuff. Actually, not even geeky. Flightradar.com is one of the highest grossing apps. Highest grossing apps on the App Store. I was one of the original testers. For those who look up in the sky and wonder what plane is that, I'm that guy. So, yeah.
Okay, amazing. Yewande, what about yourself?
Such a hard question. I think for me, for someone that invests and gives out a lot of money, I actually dislike fundraising. Yes.
You enjoy it?
I dislike it. I don't
you dislike it?
Yeah, I don't enjoy it. And that's so strange for the kind of work we do. I think it's so hard, and I always respect founders. And I think that's also why I do what I do. But when people see me, they think, I love fundraising and I love chasing money, but no, I don't.
Could I ask you a question then? What's one of your biggest motivators?
To leave things better than I experienced, and to be able to unlock a lot of potential for young people and people that are trying to solve problems. Yeah.
Amazing. I think that goes really nicely into our first question. How did you get into helping startups? We kind of spoke about it earlier, but...
Okay, so I think personally and professionally, it came from trying to solve technology problems. And I was working in corporate, and I think I became a bit restless in my rate and pace of growing. And so I think I took a gap year, and fortunately for me, I was able to work out of a co-working space where there were a lot of like young entrepreneurs. And I think because I'd had corporate experience, they started asking me some questions which they didn't know. And so I started out as an advisor, and then I learned software engineering. I built a startup myself, and then I just went through the whole process of building a startup, exiting a startup, being an operator, being an angel investor, and then just seeing all the gaps and all the problems. And that just led me to make sure that other startups and other founders are well equipped financially, resourcefully, and talent-wise.
Thank you. Gosbert, what about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the journey, if you travel with me back to about 2016, I think at the time I was living outside of London, and I was running an accelerator program which was focusing on kind of energy businesses, and it was down in the southwest. And back then, I think it was like acceleration. That was it. There was no talk of venture capital. Venture capital was something that happened if you went to London Business School. That was it. It wasn't accessible. I can't even remember any conversation around kind of diverse founders back then. However, there was one day I came back to London for something, had a breakfast meeting, and I met a bunch of people, and it was people who were doing interesting things. If anyone remembers like Backstage Capital, does anyone remember those days? Yeah, heads are nodding. It was around that time, that's the first time in the conversation, and I realized what businesses succeed is the businesses that get rocket fuel, and rocket fuel is capital. At the time, unfortunately, there wasn't really much of a conversation of how you get the capital. But I do remember, sorry to pick on people in the audience, Abby, for example, you're one of the first people I remember who talked about angel investing. I didn't know what angel investing was. It was like a different concept. And I thought, how can we widen access to that rocket fuel? How can we get more people with their hands on it? And it's been a real motivating factor, as well as realizing the blockers. The blockers aren't just not having money. It's about your network. It's your education, where you grew up, what your aspirations are. It's a whole mix of things which have got more complex as I've gone deeper into it. So, yeah.
So I used to work for Innovate UK back in the day. From a government perspective, how do you find that raising capital differs? Is that a tricky question?
You mean from the way that you view it?
Yeah, yes.
From my experience, just in terms of...
Hello, sir.
Sorry, everyone. There was problems on the Northern Line. That's all I'm going to say.
But you look great.
Thank you.
So your question was from a government perspective. So you mean from a kind of policy? I can speak to that. So I guess my experience in terms of involvement with government has been specifically around how do we broaden access to business resource, including capital. And I've sat on various committees, and if anyone's sat on these committees, they're a real mixed bag of, sometimes it can feel like a talking shop, sometimes you see things happen and you're like, oh wow, we discussed that 2 years ago, and it's finally happening. I think a frustration I find is that if you usually speak to government, they're usually looking at the whole UK. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because they're the government. They should be looking at the whole UK. But ultimately, their bottom line is that what they're looking for is job creation. They're the things they can talk about, especially when it comes to election time. How many jobs did we create? And that is for businesses which are typically scalable. Businesses they can point at and say, if we direct capital towards these businesses, they're going to produce X number of jobs, which makes us look great. The different nuances of, let's say, minority founders, black founders, it's often missed out on. It's a conversation which they view it as, and there's a reality, right? It's like, how big is the population? Less than, 5% of the whole of the UK? So sometimes I find there's a lack of kind of priority in that case to think, okay, it's not just about black founders, it's about our education, it's about where we live, etc. So it can be a bit of a mixed bag. Sometimes it feels great, other times I understand the perspective of which they're looking at. They're looking at the whole UK, they want big jobs, big returns, big outcomes.
Thank you. Cecil, before we were discussing, what was your motivator to help startups? Would you be able to chime in there?
Yeah, sure. So myself and Izzy, we set up Foundervine because we saw a gap in the system where there was underrepresented people or founders that had great ideas for businesses, but just didn't have the opportunities. So we didn't necessarily want to set up a business, but kind of ended up going in that way. Because what we started doing developed a lot of traction. And, I'm talking about being called to Downing Street. We thought we did something wrong, but, they actually wanted to support us. And then, we got called up by some banks. They wanted to work with us, called up by some of the largest retailers in the country, just really wanting to go in and help underrepresented founders. So I guess, you're saying it's a mixed bag in terms of what it looks like for support. Some people talk, some people act. We like working with people and businesses that act. And we are very, we repel those that just talk. And there's quite a few of them in the system. But I'm really kind of happy to say that there's lots of businesses out there that want to help underrepresented founders, but sometimes they just don't have the right conduit to do that. And so, businesses like ours, I guess, really kind of help them access those underrepresented founders and act through us, basically.
Cecil, can you talk a little bit about your history as well? You personally.
Me personally?
You personally.
Wow, okay. How far back do we want to go? From the beginning. So I grew up in northwest London. My parents were immigrants from Ghana. My dad used to drive a taxi and work in KFC, and my mum used to do cleaning jobs. My mum was very good at sewing, so she actually started a sewing business. And guess what? Everyone in the family got involved. So if anyone wants to have a good pencil pleat, or like any curtains, I'm your
we
man.
can see it. This is
Yeah?
look at it. You were worth the wait.
I didn't make this though. So I grew up with both of my parents being entrepreneurs, but I guess disconnected from any sort of entrepreneurial system. They didn't have access to any finance, so it was just like a bootstrapped business that they were running from the house, making curtains. And they didn't have any good networks because they were immigrants, basically. And also in terms of the knowledge, like there was no internet, so they couldn't just go and find out, information on how to, create a good business. So I grew up with watching them doing, I wouldn't say doing really well, but doing okay enough to pay the mortgage and pay bills. And so entrepreneurship was kind of just in my head. And I never really saw myself as an entrepreneur until I got into business, which was when I was headhunted by a tech company in Spain to create their UK division. And I didn't know anything about business at all, but I did know how to Google.
Well done, thank you.
And I Googled like hell. It was actually very stressful. I would never go back to those days. But once you learn stuff, it's easier to learn new stuff. And it's almost like you're building out this network of knowledge, right? And, after doing that, it really made me want to help other founders from underprivileged backgrounds do the same. Because actually, there's a lot of innovation and great ideas trapped behind what essentially is a barrier. And that barrier is usually because we're from certain backgrounds, or we're born in a certain place, or we look a certain way. And as Foundervine, one of our key things is we want to make innovation open to anyone, anywhere. And so we want to unlock those barriers, basically. Yeah, that's
Amazing.
my story.
This question wasn't on the prep sheet, but I'd love to ask it anyway. One of the things that I've been saying is we need to put more support into bootstrap startups. And you kind of spoke about how your parents, had bootstrap businesses. I think when you're raising capital, it's like dating, isn't it? You have to make sure the investor really is the right fit. Do you have any advice for any of the founders in the space on knowing when they should stop being bootstrapped, when they should want to raise capital, and that kind of dating process? And I'm open to anyone answering that question.
Yeah, I could go really quickly.
Yeah.
I would say don't look at investment as the end game. It's simply a tool to get you from a state of being small to a state of being either medium-sized or big. So you should really look at, why do you want to be big, right? Is there a bigger market you want to go after? Or are there, I don't know, clients or customers overseas that you want to target? Don't just look for investment for the sake of investment, and usually I speak to a lot of founders that are like, oh, I'm looking for investment. Do you know any VCs? Do you know any VCs? And I'm like, what are you going to use the money for? And they're like, marketing. I'm like, okay, so if you're going to use it for marketing, like, how big is your market? Who are you looking to serve? And they're like, yeah, just like, more people, everyone. And it just doesn't make sense. And what you find actually is that some founders, when they raise that capital, they waste it. And, they thought it was a barrier, but actually their real barrier was behind that barrier. So my advice is definitely, like, model your business, figure out what you need to, what are you trying to aim for, and then use the investors to help you get there. And if you approach an investor like that, as in, hey, look, this is where we're trying to get to, and this is what I need, I think they'll be a lot more receptive than, saying, hey, I'm raising 20 million and I'm going to give you 10%. Like, it's just the wrong way to go about it. But yeah, that's just my viewpoint.
Gosbert, I see you. Yeah, okay.
Okay, fantastic answer. I think one thing that I would say is for founders underestimate the amount of learning that they have to go through from the beginning. So you wake up today and say you want to start a startup, and there's so many things you don't know and so many unknowns. And sometimes deciding whether to bootstrap or to get some capital or to get like a VC to invest just is based on how fast you can learn and what you want out of what you're building. If you can afford it, you can bootstrap. But like you said, if you're planning to like really, really grow, and then you must figure out a solution or a problem that is big enough that you feel like you want to tackle. Not every investor is trying to say yes to you. And at the same time, not every investor is trying to say no to you. But then if you also don't know the path that you're trying to take, and the only way you know that is every day waking up, learning, figuring it out, talking to investors, some will say no, some will say yes. And for you to figure out what does the future look like for me, my team, or the problem I'm solving. Most people start off bootstrapping, and at some point they can go get money and get investments. The most important thing for investors is they're looking for returns, and they're looking for outsized returns. They're looking for people solving a large problem in a large market. A lot of startups, especially early stage founders, struggle to show that it's a big problem. You're so obsessed with the solution that you think, but remember that investors have seen different startups, different problems, different solutions. Some are even repeats. So you see fintech, people have seen all sorts of startups in fintech. And then if you cannot talk about your journey, how unique you are, and how large that problem or your solution will cover, then you're going to struggle. So my advice is, if you can afford it, start out and prove and validate what you're trying to do, and then network your way to be able to get people to also advocate for you, to also like guide you. The biggest factor of your success is your rate of learning. You're going to learn so much. You're not going to be able to hire a finance person immediately. You're not going to be able to hire HR. Investors want to see how you navigated that. You're not going to be able to like get technology credits immediately. Google wants to be able to see what you've done on your own before they give you that. So your rate of learning is more important than any money that you're getting. And that actually determines how much you get if you're going to go and invest. I think that's where I'll stop.
Thank you so much for saying that. And on the Google point, we've just hired someone who works with our bootstrap startups because we've recognised that the landscape is shifting and changing so much. Gosbert, I'd love to hear you.
I just say, ignore all these do what you love merchants, like who say do what you love and all certain. You have to manage your stakeholders, and your stakeholders could be partners who are financially, romantically and emotionally invested in you. It could be family. If your family have put a lot of money into your education and they expect certain returns, like you have to manage them. And I think there's a need to be honest. I think a lot of the mythology, which is, building stuff in your garage, going unpaid for a year, especially diverse and underrepresented founders, there's no chance of doing that. And, I had a really honest answer. I was in Birmingham this afternoon, and there was a bunch of startups pitching, some in the energy space. And someone from the Caribbean said, why did you start the business? And I was expecting, passion, And he said, I'm from Barbados. I have a chance to change my family's trajectory by creating wealth. And I thought that was very honest, because we don't really talk about money in startup land. It's kind of mystical. It's in the background. It's not talked about. And founders who've got great jobs, if you've had a great career, you're going to take a hit. And I think it's important to be honest about where you are, where you want to get to, but also what's that messy middle ground where you may need to kind of hustle and rely on other people. And I think we need more. I've seen Foundervine doing a great job of this. Have more of those honest conversations. Some people can't pursue ideas because there's just no payoff in the medium term, and they've just become new parents. For other people, there's other considerations like care. Care is a big one. They're responsible for other people, and I don't often. Mainstream startup world does not like these conversations, saying, I'm a full-time carer for my parents, or something like that. I think it's about honesty. Where do you want to get to? What does that look like, and also what's that in between?
Thank you. You've beautifully gone into my next question on what are some of the pain points that you see in the ecosystem, and then I'll probably ask you what are some tips that you have for those pain points. So maybe let's start with the first bit.
I think pain points are success, so defining what success is. So the point that Cecil made earlier about not every business is venture backable. And I've seen a lot of people burn themselves out, run themselves into the ground. I think the first ever founder I ever worked with back in 2016, 17, had remortgaged their house and come onto an accelerator program, of which we'd promised, they were a transport startup, and we'd promised to give them free use of a bus, which sounds ridiculous, it was. We gave them a bus to use, but to finance the first year of the business, they'd remortgaged their house and their partner was taking on extra work. He was under so much pressure. I've never seen someone so stressed. And I think there was never a vision of what does success look like. And even nowadays, I think not everyone needs to be venture backable. Venture capital is more accessible than ever before. We know what it is. There's courses. YC have opened up their entire library to explain it. But I think there needs to be more understanding of what does that future point look like, and also risk. I think the pain point is a misunderstanding of what does success look like, which ultimately makes people work too hard, burn out, etc., etc.
Can we go into the mental health piece for a second? What do you recommend for our founders to not have burnout?
That's a very
Oh wow, was that a loaded question?
You're dealing with individual personalities. I would say, I'll probably come back to this, but I would say support networks. I think, again, in mainstream startup land, which I'm kind of part of, so, I'm biting the hand that feeds me in a respect. There isn't really a conversation because I think sometimes the scene is driven by those whose kind of bare minimum is excellence, right? I've got this view on black founders that we need more bang average black founders, not necessarily excellent. So,
oh Lord,
that's a big one.
Yes, sorry.
I would say support networks, and I think there are spaces where you can have those conversations. That line between your personal life and the business fuse. They have to fuse if you're going to do a startup. I think finding those kind of spaces where you can share, where you can be vulnerable, and let's be real, you can't be vulnerable with everyone. But I think reaching out, finding those spaces. I will come back because I have some time to think.
Yeah, what you said about support networks is super important, super. I remember, building this tech company for my Spanish, parent company, and just being so depressed. I wasn't going out and meeting other underrepresented founders. I was just kind of, at home because I couldn't afford an office, just grinding on the internet, just trying to find buyers, messaging on LinkedIn, doing research. Just really, many times I thought, what are you doing this for? This is stupid. You had a really good job before, and you went to do this stupidness. And at the time as well, I just had a baby, and, I was a provider of the house, and I wasn't really earning much. And it takes you to dark places. I would say if you're going to be a founder, you should think very carefully about the level of resilience you have, because you need to be super, super, super resilient. And not everyone has to be a founder. I think there's some great people that help build these businesses when they start. But there are those people that are so gritty that they can weather through so many things. And a good example of a founder that we've helped that I think is super gritty is HoaQ. HoaQ is similar to Instagram, but for fitness influencers. So fitness influencers can monetize their followers using HoaQ. And when Peter, the founder, started up, he literally walked from gym to gym, asking the gyms if they want to use his software. And this was early stage, and so the software wasn't really that great. And he was getting no after no after no after no. He kept going. he kept going. He kept pushing through, even though it was so depressing, getting no after no. And this year we had Founder Fest. We actually invited him to speak, and we were taking pictures next to billboards. And he was like, "Oh, Cecil, do you know what? Like, there's a gym right next to this billboard." And I went in there, and they told me no right now. And, just as he's saying that, his picture's coming up on the billboard. And this is a guy now who's got backing from Morgan Stanley. Recently, he was featured on Times Square, and he's doing amazing stuff in terms of the revenue he's bringing in without spending a dollar on marketing. And, this is a guy that's been through so much and had so much rejection, but now is having that level of success. So, when I look at him, and one of the things we did actually with him was we gave him free WeWork space for a year. And this was during the pandemic when everyone's at home all being, very depressed because they weren't able to see people. And when we went into WeWork and saw him for the first time, he literally just broke down and cried. And he was like, "Thank you guys, like you don't know what you've done for me," right? And I think sometimes it's those small touches that we can do with founders. Support networks, but also small things that we can provide our founders, Google credits, that will actually go a long way. Sometimes people think they need hundreds of thousands of pounds to help founders. It's actually not that deep. Like, you can do really small, simple things. And if any of you know any founders that, are struggling in your communities, I'll say just reach out and do simple things for them. It really works.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that does deserve a round of applause. And I just want to shamelessly plug the hub, because that's why we have brought the hub back. So we really do want you here, and we want you using the space. It's open from 9 till 5, and then we have events in the evening like this one. I'd love your input as well.
So I think I'll do the mental health one first. Yeah. I think when you've done startup before, or you've come for this event, or you've worked in venture, you're kind of familiar with the roller coaster mentality everybody knows, where you're up one day, you're down the other day. And I think a lot of people underestimate how much that affects your well-being. Like, just imagine up, down, day on day, week on week, month on month. It starts to burn you out faster. And I think one of the things that, I always advise founders is finding a way to just balance that with support system, with family, with socials. Sometimes you think your company is going to die, and it's not going to die. Everybody knows how many times they thought their company was going to die. Like, you can ask any, right now, yeah, you literally don't know what's around the corner, and you think it's going to die, and you think you're going to die with it, but then sometimes you just have to, and then there's also shame, there's guilt, there's, being broke, there's, I spoke at Google yesterday, and then today I can't make payroll. Like, there's no problem that you're going through that another founder or other founders haven't gone through. So if you can find a founder network to join, if you can find communities are really, really great, especially in the UK, especially for migrants that don't have a lot of family and friends. I think communities like this are very, very important. You don't know who you meet, you don't know who inspire you, you don't know who connects you to get support that you actually need. Sometimes even talent. Sometimes you can get really great executive migrants to be able to work for you pro bono for 6 months, 1 year, and you were stressing about even hiring those people. So I think mentally just take care of yourself no matter what. I think a lot of founders and founding teams always underestimate that, and then just lean into your support system. In terms of problems or pain points, I think outside what they'd said, I think number one is access to capital. I think there's not enough capital, and I think everybody has said it. Someone was saying to me VCs, give some certain people risk capital, meaning take this capital. We don't know what you're going to do, experiment. And a lot of diverse founders don't have access to risk capital, meaning I don't even have anything. Here's a piece of paper, give me $1 million to go and figure out things. Unfortunately, that's the reality of diverse founders. So for me, I feel like the more we unlock capital, because they really do have a lot of like you said, he was a provider, and then, you know, some people are actually taking care of their families, so they need to pay some bills to be able to focus very well, and the sacrifice is actually higher. I also think that, so in the UK, one thing I've noticed is information is actually very powerful, and so sometimes a lot of people don't have access to the information that can be very enabling. Communities do a great job. I was just speaking to a young guy here, and he said, "Oh, I got an Innovate UK grant for my renewable energy startup, and this is how I got it." And I feel like a lot of people don't even have access to that information to be able to apply for that. You know, there's so many things that we do, you know, even at HoaQ. And for me personally, it's okay, how can we start providing this information on a wider scale? Maybe through hubs, maybe through communities, maybe online, and let people even have access to that instead of just staying in silos. So I think that's one big pain point. And I think the last one is talent. So I say talent because if you're building a very innovative startups, you're going to need people, and hiring in the UK is kind of expensive. And so how do you balance the fact that you're based in the UK or operating in the UK, and you need the best people to work with you outside just promising them equity? One way we've tried to do that is match, you know, migrants or, you know, remote staff, but still in the UK, people need to be able to have access to people that want to work on things that are exciting. How do we start, you know, getting them in the rooms like this alongside founders?
Amazing. I'm wary of time, and I could just keep going on and asking questions. Can we open up the room for questions in the space? Is that okay? Okay, amazing. Gentleman in the orange top.
Thanks. Hi, good evening to you all, and well done for being up there as well. I'm Lawrence Down. I'm a small-time investor, so please don't all rush in my direction afterwards. It's always dangerous I mention it. But on a serious point, and this particularly to Cecil, because I've just noticed this today, how important are events to you, going in for competitions and recognition? Because you've just picked up an award this week, which you may want to mention. I think it's very interesting as well, the sort of award you picked up in the organisation, but how important is it to startups to actually be involved in those sort of things?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. And the award that you're mentioning is the European Women Payments Network Ally of the Year. So thank you. I really believe in allyship. I don't understand why women entrepreneurs aren't invested in as much as male entrepreneurs, because actually they run better organizations that have better cultures. I don't understand it. So I'm an ally, but for me, it's just, that's the way it should be. It should be that we support women founders. And also in Foundervine, 75% of our leadership is women. So I'm the minority, actually, so kind of have to just, listen and, toe the line. But you said how important are events and recognition and all of these things. So I think there's two parts to building a startup. One is in the engine room, building the business and making things work, growing things, getting customers and all that stuff. But then there's another part that you definitely need to think about, which is, how are you going to make your business, visible to the people that actually care about it and want to buy your products? I'm coming from a food and drinks market hall right now, and the products I saw there, simply amazing. These are really tasty foods that are healthy for you, that you do not see in the supermarket, but they're all created by small-time founders. And the reason we don't see these foods is that they just don't have that visibility. And, visibility is so important, right? If you go into the supermarkets, you'll see Heinz, right? All over the shelves. You'll see all of those unhealthy biscuits that are made by the same company, but with different logos. You'll see them plastered all over the place. So how do you break through, all the noise and make yourself visible? And I think it's about awards. It's about events and networking and meeting people, using LinkedIn, using Instagram Like, those things didn't exist 15 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. Now they exist, and that's actually created a bit more democracy when it comes to being able to put yourself out there. So yeah, like I'd say it's half grinding in the engine room and then half, being out front, painting the windows and making everything look pretty. I do see some founders making the mistake of thinking that it's just about making everything look pretty. And then when you open up the engine, there's nothing underneath. And what happens to those founders is they get found out very quickly and they crash or they burn out. So yeah, just don't be one of those people. So has that answered your question?
Yeah, it's a question that I just wanted. I thought good opportunity here to actually bring them to the conversation very early on.
Cool. All right, thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to our panelists. It's been an evening of honest conversations, I must say. So my name is Nathaniel Luz. I run a remittance startup called FlameCap. And I want to ask, you guys talked about hearing a lot of no's and fundraising and all of that. What's the best way you would advise maybe early startups trying to raise less than $250K USD to raise? Do you advise F&F? Do you advise accelerators? Do you advise, what are like the top 1 or 2 options that you would advise to startups to explore? Thank you.
Can I go on then, I think? So less than $250,000 it really depends, and I know it really depends, but I think that if you can start out with a friends and family round, and even though like a lot of underrepresented founders don't have like friends and families that can drop 25K, and that's even one of the reasons why we started HoaQ. HoaQ started out with, syndicating $25,000 checks, $50,000 checks, $100,000 checks. If you don't have friends and family, then you would have to now lean in more into angels and accelerators. Accelerators are good not just because of money, they also give you access. So for example, some accelerators help you. So I know, I don't want to mention their names. So I know accelerators that help you in some countries to even get you like fintech licenses. They help you with visas. They help you with migrating like some workers. They help you with access to spaces. Like he said, they give co-working space to a startup for a year. And they also help you introduce you to investors. And most importantly, they help you to practice. So pitching is like basketball. You know how you keep shooting and you get better. A lot of founders don't realize this. They don't realize that the more no's you get, the better you are at pitching. It can be frustrating, it can be annoying, but I think, friends and families, angels, and an accelerator will be good for you to start. What you want to also try and do is increase your surface area of luck. So events like this also, you never know who's looking for you. And when we did an event, our last investment in France, we did an event just before Viva Tech. And an individual came for that event, and he pitched to us, and he told us what he was doing between France and Africa, and it was exactly what we were looking for because we knew the market and we invested, and that's our last investment. And he didn't know that he was going to get investment. He already built the credibility. He had already talked to people. He was already struggling to raise, but that's what we were looking for. So events also help you like increase your surface area. But if I just say like friends and family, accelerators, and angels. Now I think the thing is you now have to figure out where to get angel networks and where to get angels. So there are angels that are individuals and there are angels that belong to a network. So maybe you can figure out like the top 50 angel networks in the UK and then see how you can find someone that knows someone in that network that can introduce you. And then I'm sure by the time you pitch all 50, you'll get investments.
There we go. Yeah, sure. I would say just be creative. I think the first fundraise is actually a test because it's a signal for future investors to say, with nothing, how much money can this person bring in? The fact that you've brought money in, however creatively you got it legally, of course, I'm not encouraging anything else. But there is one story of creativity. I love what you guys have said about grants or looking for angels. There was a founder who was quite a handsome guy, and this will be relevant later on. He came to me and said that someone approached him to be on a TV show. And I was like, oh, great, do your thing. And they're going to pay him to be on a TV show about entrepreneurship. I won't blast out the name of the TV program, but it is on Amazon Prime. It's terrible. It's a terrible program. I had met the producers a few months before that, and I was shocked at how bad they were. But I didn't know how they had money. And he's a handsome guy, so he sort of fronted it, and he went in, and they gave him like 100 grand, of which I didn't believe they would give the 100 grand. But they did. They were from a very moneyed family. that was half of his first round. And if we did a strategy session, if we spent all day in an office planning, TV show would not have been on my hit list at all. Terrible show, really bad. Like, you know, like for the money he got, but he's gone on. He went into Techstars. He's expanding his business now in Nigeria and such. But great founder. I had no doubt that that will be a positive signal. So I think look at the first raise. If anyone raising a small amount, it's a test. Because future investors will look at it and say, how did you manage to get money? There's a database of accelerators, which I'm happy to share in the write-up, who give grants. So be creative and, you know, look for TV shows. You never know as well. So.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
I think the final question, because we're out of time. E raises his hand first.
I just want to say it's nice to see such a diverse crowd and to see like a panel full of black leaders, like lovely black people that are strong doing their thing. I actually flew in from the States just for this event because I know Sam, because I've received, because I flew. I actually get more support and more belief in what I'm doing from here in the UK in this community than I do in the States. So and I've known Sam for like a couple years, and I've seen him at different events. And so whenever I heard he had an event today, I made sure I'm going to be in Europe for like a month. So I made sure I came. I'm going to be in London just for tonight, and then I fly out tomorrow. But I wanted to say, it's beautiful to see such a diversity and going forward, and I just love to see that because I go to meetings in the States all the time, and I'm always the only black person in the crowd. It's always everybody's way. It's just wonderful to see this. But I also wanted to say that you said the UK is only 5% black. I don't know what you call it. Yeah. So what do you think has made you so positive? Why is it so important now for black entrepreneurs to finally get some seed or some funding? What do you think was the catalyst to start that?
So even though the black population is maybe 4%, if you look at working age population, it's actually more because I guess more black people are immigrants to the country, so they're actually younger in terms of demographic. And then if you look at London in particular, there's 13% of black people in London, and this is where all the opportunities are. So there's so much disparity in that, and you know, if you look into the future, there will be a larger makeup of black people, but also other ethnic minorities. And I think the goal here is to make sure that the UK is a place that everyone can thrive, because sometimes an idea from one single person can change the trajectory of a whole country, right? One single person, right? If you think about like Zuckerberg or like Jobs, right? These are single people, but they created things that have changed the way that we live our lives. And what we're saying is we just want to be open to everyone having an opportunity to create a business. Doesn't matter if they're black, blue, red, orange. We should be open to that innovation, basically.
Yeah, sure. I think there are several kind of factors. Like, yeah, the numbers. It would seem that minorities generally are quite a small proportion of the UK kind of talent pool. But I think the mix of different things, both the numbers growing, our proximity to cities, and I always say this: whenever we've done any government work, it's like the government's responsibility to utilise all talent, like not half or 40%, but all. And to pick up on what Cecil said, I think there is an awakening. Obviously, old attitudes die hard. But if you look at the UK, this is a small island. People don't like me to say that, but it's a small island which is known for adapting ideas from the outside. Anything national which you can point to as British has effectively come from elsewhere and been adapted, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. Tea, for example. Who puts... I mean, that's not... There are no tea plantations in the UK. Like, these are things which have been taken from the outside, and hopefully that some of that attitude is being adopted now, looking at the opportunity that minorities provide. And you know, sometimes I feel for diverse founders, you know, conversation about hair care, just to use an example. I remember that 10 years ago and it being seen as something quite dismissive, like, oh, you know, who cares? Like, it's such a small. But as products have been adapted for a wider market, now there's an opportunity. But for founders 10 years ago, it looked at something that you did, you know, small in your bedroom, something that you worked, sorry to pick on Victoria over here, doing plantain chips. Like, plantain chips 10 years ago were kind of niche. You know, if you took your friends, came to a house party, plantain chips were like, oh, what's this? Now it's been mainstreamed, and businesses like Victoria's are like seizing on that opportunity. So, yeah.
It's a good example, yeah.
Do you have anything else to add?
So the only thing I think I'll add is the UK is actually really now, like you said, waking up to like having more diverse tech talent and founders. So recently they've had more founders migrate to the UK as a hub, closer to like different countries. And I think that, it will keep increasing. They'll keep improving local talent as well as bringing like really great top talents into the UK. So hopefully that helps. And most of the talent is, Black, diverse founders.
Thank you. That was really beautiful, and I feel really privileged to have been able to share the stage with you all. Can we get a final round of applause for our panelists, please? I also have a really odd request. I want to do a selfie of everybody in the room. It might not work, but I'm going to try. Oh, yeah, it's working, kind of.
So we have to pick. Do we have to?
You want us to stand up?
Maybe stand up, and then come closer. Let me test how long my arms are. Okay. And then I'm going to do one on this side of the room. Just to show me we're here.
You want to take pictures as well, like group photo together, yeah. I'll say, yeah, you can stand there and come closer. What's this? Gotcha. Say cheese.
Cheese.
Good. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So sorry that we didn't have enough time for the Q&A. So today's like a 2-in-1 program, right? So I'm going to be calling up on stage ICE Network Propel. So there's this program called Propel Accelerator by the ICE Network. So I'm going to be calling up on stage Tommy Edwards, as the CEO of Tech 1M. Let's give her a round of applause as she come up on stage, please. And after that, I'm going to be calling Sade Amale, co-founder of Deep Loop. Let's give her a round of applause as she come up on stage, please. And also, we've got Afia Choolo. This is not our first time. This is not our first training. Please, let's show us some love, please. The second Tanzanian in the room. Yeah, so I'm also going to be calling Ade to come up on stage to moderate the panel. So let's give him a round of applause, please. Thank you.
So I guess we could begin with intros from everyone, from Tommy onwards.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Tommy Edwards, CEO and co-founder of Tech 1M. Basically, what we're doing is Tech 1M is a recruitment intelligence platform that leverages data science and AI to simplify talent acquisition, to eliminate bias during hiring, and to improve candidate experience. Lovely to be here.
Hello, I'm Sade. I'm founder of Deep Loop. Deep Loop is an AI-based platform that helps brands understand their consumers better. So what we do is we have a base of around 250 million people globally who can respond to questions around intent to buy and various other sort of segmentation data, so helping brands essentially get a return on their ad spend.
Hi everyone, I am Afia. I'm not Ghanaian as well. My name is Swahili. I'm from North London, but I am part Tanzanian, part Jamaican, part St. Vincent. So that's good about me. But yeah, my co-founder of Cloudifo. Cloudifo is an AI finance colleague. What that means is you connect your business banking data, commerce data, and it takes you through your finances in in conversation. Not everything needs to be a graph. It can just tell you you have 6 months till you run out of cash. But it also just talks you through your numbers every week, sets goals, analyzes, really just making finance more accessible for business owners who are really busy. We've just heard all about that. So that's what we do.
So I guess the next thing would be, obviously I'm here to talk about ICE Propel, but I think it's easier to hear from the people who've done it. So I'll keep it, what does ICE mean to you over the last year?
Okay, so we all started on ICE Propel last December, right? I actually found out about ICE Propel here at Startup Grind last year. So we did an application, we had a few interviews, and then we found out we were successful. And in December, we had a dinner. These two were dilly-dallying in South Africa, so they weren't there. Kenya, okay, yeah. So they weren't there, but we had a dinner, and then in the January it started. And as you explained earlier, it's a program ran by founders, investors, people who are like third or fourth time founders. So you're not getting people who just talk the talk, but who've actually walked the walk. And you have a mentor, you get to meet investors. But I think for me, the most valuable was learning from like really, really experienced founders of some of the biggest companies you may know or may not know, and getting just actionable lessons and advice and practical information, but also meeting the rest of the cohort. And I'm sure we'll talk about that afterwards. We'll talk about that afterwards.
Sorry, Ade, what was the question?
What did you define ICE as after last year?
My interpretation of ICE last year. So my interpretation of ICE has been, it's very eclectic in terms of the people that are part of the network. So anything from like early stage to late stage to second, third time founder. And then you have, I think, around 30% who aren't founders, so maybe from lawyers to VCs to angel investors. And I would say for me, it's been the social aspect, but when it's not just about work, it's literally like how work is affecting your entire life. Being able to hear those stories, I think, for me, like real trenches stories. And then I would say a highlight for me in terms of ICE this year was the summer trips. So they have annual trips. And that happened to fall on my birthday, and I remember like being super stressed because it was in Ibiza, and I had a group of friends on the island who were like backup if anything were to go wrong, because essentially I was spending it with, other than these two, about 70 strangers, and I just thought, why am I doing this? But after, I just thought, wow, this is like, when would you ever do that? Like, it was incredible. So yeah, I would say, very adventurous, essentially.
Okay, so I think you guys have basically mentioned what ICE is. So for me, I found out about ICE through Shadi, and she's like, oh, and then I checked it because I've done Techstars, I've done Foundervine, Barclays Venture Program. So you're like, shut up. So you're like, you can't just keep doing. You have to be extremely strategic on what sort of what you're spending your time on, because as you know, startup is very, very tedious, and it takes a whole lot of time to do that. And I looked at it and I felt, okay, they're only going to select 8 people. What is this about? And by the time you started to look at the profile of the people that are involved and the way in which the program itself was set up, the structure in which it takes, and I just started to feel like, oh my God, I'm extremely lucky to actually have gone through the program in itself. As it turns out, almost half of the people, of the 8 of us that were into the program, end up raising during the program. And that's because of how intensive and how handheld the program itself was.
So I was going to loop on to fundraising. So one of the main things about ICE is that every member has raised at least 300 grand. It changes it should change over the year depending on diversity and stuff like that. But the idea is that everyone has walked the walk, and whoever you're getting advice from has been through it. There are founders who can give you advice, even if they've just sold a company, they can tell you about a secondary coming up that you should do this or do that, or why not with this lawyer, that lawyer. So I want to go on to fundraising, I guess. How did you find the fundraising coaching and, you know, the good news at the end of the program?
All right, so since I have the mic, I'll start. Yeah. So basically, I think when it got to, I think from my perspective, I already understood what it meant to raise from a VC. And this is because, like I said, I've done Techstars, New York City, I've been to SF, I've pretty much done what you need to do. But then it was like, when is the right time to actually do it? But then I understood the American landscape, not so much of the UK landscape, and decided to really try to really understand what the UK landscape is. What ICE did for me was not only do I already have like a deck that I thought was very good, but also made it like fantastic by saying, okay, having people go through your deck to be able to say, okay, maybe this is really good, but maybe introduce yourself a little bit stronger in this sort of area, which kind of like helped move the needle a little bit. Other areas in terms of having other VCs that you could have like pretty much like a call with. They might not be the ones you want to end up raising with, but then because you've gone through the call with them, you've kind of like understood sort of some sort of questions that you should be preparing yourself for. And by the time you're actually going for the fund that you really want to raise from, it becomes a lot easier. So I think all of that kind of made the trajectory of raising pretty smooth. So for us, we're able to raise within a 3 weeks period when I'm like, okay, yes, we're ready. Everything was ready, and before you know what's happening, we were really closing. And it's thanks to HiSE and also every single thing else that was done before then.
So I guess my experience in terms of when we started ICE, I believe December, January for me, was I'd already raised some money prior, maybe like a year prior when the market was still okay. It kind of felt like I was chasing the market. So I had a mentor, and we essentially decided that I was kind of raising because I was on this program where everyone was raising, and I was very committed to other programs, but actually it wasn't the right time to raise. So what we ended up doing was coming up with like a methodology that I could use for later on when I'm raising. I think someone here mentioned that, you know, it's a lot easier to raise when you're not actually raising, so starting those conversations early. But also the tactic a methodology we came up with, I could also use for sales, so how to qualify investors, making sure like they're the right fit for you, and so on and so forth. At that particular time as well, I also had a really weird, dodgy term sheet from a company that was asking me to flip to American company for a very small amount. So I had someone actually in the ICE network, a lawyer, that looked at the term sheet and essentially just said, yeah, you shouldn't be going for this, and that was all for free. So yeah, it was very interesting spin.
So as Tommy and Sade said, you get introductions to investors, so you can basically, I think someone said, like, practice pitching. We also had people from VCs, other founders who ran through our deck with us. Tommy and I did a session together with someone, and so actually I got to see her deck and she got to see my deck, and we could listen to the advice that we were both being given. I think one of the strongest sessions actually was from a founder who was like, I'm not going to show you how to like raise a round. I'm going to show you how to raise an extraordinary round. And I was like, oh wow, like, you know, sometimes you get the kind of generic advice, and he was like, no, I'm going to show you how to like really kill it, and talked about the difference between warm leads, cold leads, like an introduction. So just so because someone introduces you doesn't mean that's a warm lead. If someone says you should invest in this girl because I believe in her, or that's a different kind of backing. So those sessions were really informative. And even though we ended up raising like from investors outside of the program, by virtue of us being on the program, we ended up kind of raising
it just happened that we raised from a similar investor, same investor. So we were like just messaging each other, like, what did yours say? What did yours say? So we were actually able to like negotiate with each other. And we were like, no, go back and ask for more. Go back and change your valuation. So that was probably really useful because we could actually, you know, it's not just you versus the investor. It's actually like, no. We got each other's back. So yeah, I think that's another thing to remember as well. Like, it's a two-way street. I think someone said dating, going for investments like dating, but actually it is a two-way street. You've got to like them, they've got to like you. And sometimes I think that's lost with founders. And I think definitely we've all probably been there where you think actually they have all the power, but reality is they need you. And investors make, by definition, VCs make mistakes a lot. So they like back things that don't ever work, which is why they need one company to be outsized in their return. So they don't know everything. So just bear that in mind. They see a lot, but you also, as a founder, you know a lot as well about your business. So just make sure you balance that dynamic. But that's always really hard to say. It's easier said like outside of that situation than when you're in it because you need the money.
So one of the key things we do is support. I guess we have something called ICE cubes. So when you join ICE, you get allocated into a group of 8. It can be online, it can be virtual. Online, virtual, same thing. It can be in person, it can be virtual. It can be hybrid, depending on where you are and how your travel schedule is. You meet once a month. It's literally like an 8-hour session, no phones allowed. You talk about work, life, family, and like anything else. You're not allowed to give advice, you only give experience-based answers, essentially. So I found that quite an interesting outlet for myself because, you know, when you start a company, you raise money, you're going. You don't think about slowing down, about what's happening around you. So I guess the question is about support-wise. How easy was it to get last-minute support or reach out to people when you need to fix something?
Oh, I think ICE was generally, the community was really supportive. We all had mentors. People would introduce us to people they knew in the network, and like still people send like WhatsApp or send text to like check in and share information with you. We didn't actually start the cubes until Ibiza. So like a month ago is when we learned about cubes, when we was in Ibiza, and I didn't know people were going to get that deep. So like I was like, oh, tears. Like, had my sunglasses down. So but yeah, since Ibiza, I've actually joined one. It's not 8 hours, that's a lot, but we did 2.
If you go for drinks.
And really, like, I think someone mentioned it earlier, being able to share how this journey is impacting personally, professionally, family, and hearing from other founders who were like, yeah, it's not just you. Like, we've been here, we understand it. So I had my first cube a couple of weeks ago, and it was amazing.
Yeah, I think I touched on support, you know, with that dodgy term sheet that I got. But yeah, I would say for me, one of the biggest things is the network. So the founders, mainly connecting with them and just realizing everyone has a story as well. Like sometimes you hear, you know, this overnight success story, but actually behind the scenes there's a lot more that's going on. And then the other thing I can say around support, ICE-wise, yeah, I think I've kind of covered everything.
Okay, so I think for me, there was one of the things that stood out was my mentor. So in as much as you get quite a number of support, there was just this element on a particular day where I was trying to prioritize something for the product. And I wasn't sure what to base my priority on. And he just happened to be a product expert. He's actually exited and sold his company, you know, multi-millions. And so he's like, he has a methodology. And typically, if I wasn't part of the network or sitting right there with him, I probably would have been paying 5 figures to just hear him say that to me. But I absolutely got that for free. And that really helped the trajectory of what happened next with the product, because I now have something I could take on with me going forward on how to prioritize essentially different aspects of our product going forward.
So another thing is I was going to plug in any founders here who've raised at least 300K who wants to join us, to reach out to Louise right there. Do you want to wave, Louise? Essentially, we've got 5 minutes left, so I wanted to say one more thing. What would you say to other people who are thinking of joining or applying to Propel, specifically Propel? Why should they apply? And then any questions afterwards as well?
Okay, so I think Propel, like we've said, jokes aside, is actually a fantastic network to be a part of. Not only do you meet incredible people, as you could tell, we ended up just constantly bonding because it just kind of bonds you for life, and you need to find that founders network. But you're not just there you have different types of founders, and that was what was amazing. Like we're talking about Ibita, this happened just because we were part of Propel. We were then able to join the entire house network to go for like a retreat. In there, you're hearing someone talking about how they started a business with 3 people and grew it to 3 billion, and you're literally sitting in front of them and they're telling you the how. You don't really get that from a lot of networks. There's a whole lot of lip singing, but this is where they're doing the talking and they're actually doing it. They're showing you exactly how to do it. So if you're a founder and you think you meet the criteria to be part of Propel, don't hesitate. I think you should definitely take the leap, and I hope I'll see you there.
Yes, so I would say, yeah, just go for it, essentially. Being a Londoner, I feel a lot of like connections and networks in London, but this has brought like almost, I feel like a huge percentage of like the top founders in the UK and Europe all together, which is just insane, and it would take you ages to build that network. So yeah, go for it.
I think you have to be Propel, you don't have to have raised.
No.
So yeah, so if you want to just join directly, you need to have raised that amount. But if you're applying to Propel, you don't have to have raised that amount. So that's the benefit of applying to Propel. But yeah, I would agree with everything everyone said. It's just an amazing network to be a part of. There's also like an online forum, so you can be like, does anyone know this? And people will just reply and tell you. But also like vibes, you can see. So like we catch up all the time. We're constantly on WhatsApp. We had a lot of fun in Ibiza as well. ICE has a very huge fun element as well. So I think just be prepared for that too.
And then speaking about exactly fun, one of the cool things about being in ICE is, today I was trying to buy some laptops for some guys on my team, and I was Googling refurbished laptops because they all wanted new Macs. No way. And I found a company called Reebox, which is Phil's company. And Phil, you find around, running around, jumping around, dancing around. And they're actually one of the big companies in the UK doing it. So you actually hang out with a lot of the founders of the big companies in the UK, which you don't actually get to hear from all the time. And the main thing is, like I said, I went to raise this year, and I thought it would be difficult. I raised in 6 months because I literally squeezed every single person, every second of everything I could get from everyone who had raised more than me in order to complete my raise successfully. So I don't know if we open up to questions, if there's any questions. Sure.
Any question?
Thank you so much. This has been really, really inspiring. Now we have a few more minutes in the spirit of raising visibility and giving the stage to incredible founders. We've introduced Founder Spotlight a few events ago, and I'm very, very happy to introduce you to Soma Pariti, ETA Technologies. Thank you very much.
I'm well aware I am the last thing which is standing between you and the networking, so trust me, I try to be as quick as physically possible. Now, tonight, multiple times we heard that access to capital, that's an issue. And I'm here today to help you with this issue. If you don't mind, because I suppose we are all a little bit tired, hands up if you're fundraising at the moment in the room. Anybody? Raise your hands. It's a bit of an exercise to get more energy. Good, I like it. So let me tell you a little bit about my story and what I'm doing here and right now. I'm an ex-VC, and I spent 4 years in the trenches, and the unfortunate reality, and it's absolutely disgusting, that there is an unconscious and even worse, a conscious bias in the industry. While I was a VC, I was terrified by it, and that really made me thinking what I can do as an individual. Why we don't see the entrepreneurial spirit, the resilience, the brilliance behind the founders, why we look for other reasons not to invest. And that's the exact same reason why I founded ETA Technologies, where the abbreviation is standing for exactly what we are doing, entrepreneurial team analytics. Our system operates with psychometric testing and AI to provide investors with a quantified and completely unbiased overview about the team. They see who you are from an entrepreneurial standpoint, what are your capabilities, what you can do, but they don't see anything else. It comes without saying that normally I work with investors. I am part of the due diligence, I'm part of the vetting process. However, thanks to the amazing collaboration with Startup Grind, tonight I would like to open up my technology for you, absolutely free of charge, to help you in fundraising. Like I said, I try to be really quick. So what I can do for you exactly. How the technology works is really, really simple. All I need from you is just the names, titles, and email addresses of your co-founders, your team, or if you're a solo founder, just yourself. And my system is doing the rest. You complete an online assessment, which average takes time like 10-15 minutes, but feel free to sit on it as long as you wish. And as soon as you are done, the system is completely automated on our end, so you shall receive your report. Now, the report is completely quantified, focusing on the key psychometric aspects what investors are looking for. As a VC, I can testify for it that investors invest in people, and we quantify what really matters for them. It's very, very important to highlight once again that we are not just a surface level management due diligence highlighting that, oh, someone is ex-Google or ex-McKinsey. We are measuring and quantifying what really matters. Team chemistry, team dynamics, the entrepreneurial persona, resilience, probability of burnout, so on and so forth. Everything what those guys make a decision based on. As I mentioned, for everybody in this room, all the founders, all the investors, all the amazing partners who made this event possible, I would like to provide my technology absolutely free of charge, because I believe that if we work together, we can eliminate unconscious and conscious bias from the investment process for the sake of all the startups. Thank you so much for your attention, and thank you very much for the amazing Startup Grind team.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. If you want to pitch in our next event, please scan here the QR and you can apply. And with that, our evening comes to an end. And a big thank you to Sam for leading this event. This has been really, really incredible. Really incredible. We have the space until 9, but you're more than welcome to go afterwards together to a pub next door. I'm sure many of you would like to continue the conversation. Thank you, everyone. See you in our next event.